Ticker symbol TSLY is a new covered call ETF that has been all the hype in the dividend income focused community over the last few months or so. But this is for good reason. According to the YieldMax website, the TSLY ETF has a distribution rate of over 64%, which to be honest is probably higher than around 99% of all other ETFs in existence. Now in this video we are going to dig deep into this covered call ETF and not only see exactly how it works and what it has to offer, but also go over the math and explain how a relatively small amount of money invested into this ETF could be life-changing for income-focused investors. Now stay tuned because we're going to go through all this and more. Right after you, please drop a like in this video and subscribe for more future content like this. So first of all, heading over to the YieldMax ETF's website. YieldMax ETFs is from Elevate Shares. And interestingly enough, YieldMax ETFs from Elevate Shares offers multiple different covered call style option ETFs for different companies like Tesla, for example. We have Apple right here, even Nvidia, Amazon, Google. And it seems like every few weeks they have new ETFs that they're launching soon, but for the most part, they all pretty much have the same strategy. And for the sake of this video, we are going to be talking about just ticker symbol TSLY, or the Tesla covered call ETF that YieldMax offers. So the fund overview for the YieldMax TSLY Option Income Strategy ETF. It says it's an actively managed fund that generates monthly income by selling and writing call options on Tesla. TSLY pursues a strategy that aims to harvest compelling yields while retaining cap participation in the price gains of Tesla stock. The ETF's investment objective. The fund's primary investment objective is to seek current income. The fund's secondary investment objective is to seek exposure to a share price of the common stock of Tesla, subject to a limit on potential investment gains. Now some fund information about TSLY. It was started back in November of last year. The gross expense ratio is 0.99%, which is obviously rather high, but knowing how the fund works and how actively managed it is, I guess it sort of makes sense. The net assets of this fund is at $398.86 million. Which is continuously going up as this fund becomes more and more popular. But of course, to get to the good part, the distribution rate as of 8/4/2023 is 64.39%. And stay tuned because we are going to go into the dividends a little bit more in a second here. So for those of you that are familiar with covered calls, the way that TSLY works is pretty simple. The ETF consistently buys shares of Tesla and then writes covered calls and earns a massive premium. Whether Tesla trades up or down is going to determine the potential profit and the potential distribution for investors of the TSLY ETF. Now, as you can see here in the covered call diagram, the horizontal line is the security's price and the vertical line is the profit or loss potential. The dots on the profit or loss potential line indicates the amount of profit or loss the covered call seller might experience as the price moves. So when it comes to options and when it comes to TSLY, YieldMax is going to be the seller of the option contracts, not the buyer. Looking a little bit deeper into the Investopedia diagram, on the horizontal price line, the seller would break even when the price intersects profit or loss potential of 0. Now the contract seller is going to be the one that sets the strike price at the point they think the price will intersect the profit potential limit, indicated by the blue dot on the price line. It's no secret and nothing new that selling covered calls is a great way to generate massive amounts of income for really any investor's stock portfolio. But what's so great about these YieldMax ETFs and of course TSLY in specific? Investors now can have exposure to a massive fund that has a great strategy of selling covered calls on a rather expensive stock like Tesla without having to buy hundreds of shares of Tesla or even really knowing how to sell covered calls. Because of course, if an investor wants to sell covered calls, they need to own 100 shares of whatever underlying equity they're trying to sell them on. And of course, I can't speak for everyone, but there's not all that many investors that can afford to buy 100 shares of Tesla when Tesla's over $250 a share right now. But instead, like I said a minute ago, investors can now buy shares of TSLY, YieldMax Tesla Option Income Strategy ETF, and have relatively the same amount of exposure as if an investor was selling covered calls themselves. Looking a little bit deeper into TSLY and how it's performed since inception, the ETF is actually down quite a bit, almost 30% in the red as far as the ETF price. But of course not so fast, even though this ETF has maybe lost some gains as far as the ETF price. The 43.47% trailing 12-month dividend has definitely made up for some of the losses. TSLY also pays a dividend on a monthly frequency. The last dividend declared was 83 cents. Which, keep in mind, for a $15 or $16 stock is absolutely crazy. Looking at TSLY's historic payouts since the fund's inception, they've all been actually rather high, and this is of course because Tesla as a stock, as a company, does have some pretty high beta, which means the premiums on Tesla are massive and juicy. There was only 1 month back in May, which the dividend was cut down to 44 cents, which again still annualized out is a massive, massive yield. Now of course the hard part about investing into something like this, for an investor that wants more of a predictable amount paid to them every month or every quarter, this is maybe not the right investment vehicle for you, because as you see, the dividend payouts are going to be sporadic, they're going to be maybe all over the place, because again, it all depends on how Tesla trades within the given time frame, because that's how the strategy works. Now I get what you're probably asking from here. How much has TSLY returned as far as the dividends and the ETF price combined, known as the total return? TSLY year to date has returned a whopping 77.43% with dividends included. Now again, unfortunately, this ETF is rather new, so we don't have all that much a track record to go off of, and over time it's going to be very fun and interesting to see how the ETF performs as far as ETF price, and of course as far as how much the distributions are consistently. But over the last 256 days since the fund's inception, it's returned around 18 or 19%, and again this is with dividends included. So for the majority of the gains, they've been in the last few months. But for those investors out there that are seeking income on a monthly basis and to have a little bit higher risk tolerance, this ETF is a no-brainer. But now to get to the fun part. I promised that just $30,000 into this ETF could in theory return a massive amount of income on a consistent basis. So if an investor was to spend $30,000 on TSLY at $15.45 a share, which is where it's currently at, this investor could buy just around 1,941 shares of TSLY. Now TSLY paid an 83-cent dividend as of last month, which means once again in theory, keep in mind the dividends can change, a lot can change, but just going off of the last month and off of $30,000 invested into this ETF, an investor could generate $1,611 on a monthly basis with just $30,000 invested into this ETF. So this brings me to my last point. Is TSLY or any of the yield max ETFs, in my opinion, worth investing into? I actually just as of recently have started buying some shares, just a few here and there, of TSLY and the APLY, because currently out of all the different options that are offered from yield max, the Apple and Tesla are the most compelling to me as of right now. Now for me personally, in my strategy, these are never going to make up a large portion of my overall dividend growth portfolio, but for now I'm spending $20, $30, $40, $50 here and there, and I'm more or less just really excited to see how these perform over the next few months, and of course how much exactly the dividends are going to be on a consistent basis. But I want to hear from you guys down below when it comes to TSLY or any of these really crazy high yield covered call ETFs. Are you currently adding any of them into your portfolio? And if so, let us know which ones. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Thanks for stopping by as always, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.